The world was watching. A global summit in Geneva, Lev, on screens from Harlem to Accra, had brought together the most powerful voices on the planet. Lights glared, translators whispered, and millions waited for bold ideas. Then something happened one saw coming. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez leaned into her microphone. Her voice, calm but cutting, sliced through the air. "You say you fight for Africa, but you've sold your people out." Gasps, flashbulbs, silence. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, leader of Burkina Faso, stood still, his uniform crisp, his face unreadable. AOC didn't blink. "You accepted Chinese mining deals. You've locked out American investors. That's not independence. That's betrayal." The moderator's hand trembled on his notes. The interpreter in French paused. People across the world leaned in. Traoré didn't move. One African boy watching ONA-cracked TV in Mali whispered, "Will he break?" But Traoré simply looked up, his hands behind his back. The silence grew Sothic it ocked. In that moment, no one could breathe. Then Traoré stepped forward. Once, Traoré's boots echoed softly on the floor. He walked to the center of the stage. Nonets, no mic in hand. The camera zoomed in. His eyes met AOC's, not with anger, not with fear, but with something deeper. Pain mixed with patience. AOC raised an eyebrow. The moderator whispered, "Captain, do you want to respond?" He didn't speak. Yet he looked at the audience. Rows of presidents, CEOs, human rights leaders. Some avoided his gaze. Others stared wide-eyed. From Asmo village in Burkina Faso, a grandmother clutched her chest. She had raised Traoré when he was young. Shu whispered, "To the radio, say the truth, my son." Tro took a breath. Still no emotion on his face, only resolve. "Y'all think I sold my people?" He said quietly, "No." He looked directly at AOC. "I gave them something your system never did. A chance to live without chains." The translator froze. The words hit her in every language. In Paris, students on lunch break stopped chewing. In Johannesburg, a bus driver pulled over, turned up the volume. The moderator blinked. "Can you repeat that?" But Tro didn't. He turned and walked back to his seat. One sentence that wasted. The world just heard thunder without shouting. Within an hour, the phrase had circled the globe. A chance to live without chains. It wasn't just our response. It was a revolution. On Twitter, it trended in over 80 countries. In Soto, teenagers painted Eton crumbling walls. In Brooklyn, a single mother put it as her WhatsApp status. CNN brought on 4 experts. Fox News called it anti-West, but the people, they cried. In the streets of Ouagadougou, hundreds marched with homemade signs. One child held a cardboard piece that read, "Traoré speaks for us." AOC hadn't responded. Her team released a short statement. "We stand for truth." But the truth was already speaking, and it was echoing through refugee camps, dusty roads, city cafes. In Nigeria, a woman who hadn't spoken in public since losing her brother to a corrupt mining company finally stepped up to a microphone and said, "We want a life without chains, too." The UN didn't know what to say. Neither did Wall Street. But millions knew exactly what to say. A chance to live without chains. And they weren't whispering it. They were shouting it. Because for the first time in years, Africa felt heard. Within 2 hours, Traoré's words, "I gave them a chance to live without chains," became a digital wildfire. No hashtags were needed. It spread on its own. In Lagos, a teenage boy painted words on his school wall. In New York, protest signs with "without." Chains rose into the air. CNN analysts debated its meaning. Fox called it an anti-capitalist threat. But the people weren't listening to news anchors. They were listening to each other. In Swedo, a woman cried on live stream whispering, "He said what we've wanted to say for years. In Ouagadougou, people gathered in the streets. Elders clapped, children danced. A radio host in tears repeated that sentence every 5 minutes. This is our Mandela moment. One Birken Bay youth leader said. But as love poured in, the West began pushing back. State officials from 3 countries said Traoré's words were reckless. Investment groups called it a threat to stability. A leaked email from a European diplomat shut him down fast, yet Traoré said nothing more. He didn't need to. The world was speaking for him now. Within 24 hours, the pressure on Traoré exploded. Major newspapers suddenly ran headlines like, "Is Traoré a threat to global order?" Burkina Faso, from reform to radicalism. A U.S. senator amended sanctions. France suspended a loan deal. Journalists dug into old pictures trying to find dirt. But none of it landed because every attack made the people love him more. Still, the summit wasn't over. Theskin Day opened with tension. Military escorts, sharpshooters on rooftops, protesters. In Geneva chanting, "Without chains, without chains." AOC didn't speak again. She looked shaken, not afraid, uncertain. Troe acute arrived late, walked in with no security, just his aide, a former teacher named Musa. "You shouldn't be here," a staffer whispered. Traoré replied softly, "That's what they want." Inside, he sat quietly as ACEO from Canada slammed African leaders for pushing away opportunity. Tro's fingers twitched. He stayed silent. Then the moderator pointed at him. "Captain, your response?" He stood. "When I was 10, he said, a man came to our village. He offered money for Erland. The room went still. He gave Mimother a paper she couldn't read and then took our river." A single tear rolled down his cheek. That was the first chain. Even his enemies went quiet. The camera zoomed in. Traoré didn't blink. He wasn't reforming. He was remembering. That river gave us food, gave us joy. We bathed there, laughed there. It belonged to everyone. He paused, but a stranger said it belonged to him. And we, who had lived there for generations, were told to leave. U.S. diplomats scribbled notes. A French official tapped their mic, visibly uncomfortable. The next year, Traoré said softly, "Mimother died from a stomach infection. She had no clean water." He swallowed her. "When you speak of opportunity," he looked at the Canadian executive. "Do you mean that silence?" The moderator said nothing. The hall was frozen. "That was the day I knew," he said. "Africa would never be free until we could say no." Even to a smile that hides a chain. Tears flowed freely in the crowd. A student from Ghana stood up. A protester Livestremet whispering, "He's not a politician. He's one of us." And back in the village where he was born, old women knelt and wept before the radio. He remembered the river. One whispered, "He never forgot us." That night, "Remember the River" became its second global slogan, and the world listened closer. That night, in a quiet hotel room in Geneva, Captain Ibrahim Traoré sat alone. Outside, crowds chanted his words "without chains" and "remember the river." But inside, his hands shook as he opened a letter. It was from a childhood friend. His name was Bukari now, a meaning supervisor in Burkina Faso. The letter was short, just one paragraph. "Brother, they forced me to sign. Chinese men, government men. They said if I didn't, they'd arrest me. I'm sorry, isn't it? I gave them the land near your mother's grave." Traoré sat frozen, his throat tightened. His chest felt hollow. He remembered the small patch of land where his mother used to sing while planting millet. Now it was gone. "They're digging." The letter said, "I heard the machines this morning." For the first time in years, Ibrahim Creed, Not for power, not for politics, but for his mother, for his people. Outside the chants continued, but He felt like a little boy again, helpless, staring at the dust rising from the ground where his heart was buried. The next day, the summit resumed, cameras rolled, lights blazed, but something had changed. Ibrahim Traoré walked in slower, his eyes tired. AOC glanced at him. For a moment, her face softened. She looked unsure. A German chancellor spoke about African potential. A French diplomat quoted Nelson Mandela, but no one mentioned people actually suffering. No one mentioned the graves being dug by gold machines. The moderator called on Tro. The room tensed. He stood but didn't speak. 10 seconds, 20, 30, just silence. They say lions roar. He finalized. But sometimes lions are silent when they're grieving. Gasps. Camera zoomed in. You say I sold my people, but yesterday a machine dug through Mimother's resting place, and no one in this room stopped it. Murmurs. Some delegates lowered their heads. Tell me, who is betraying Africa? His voice cracked just slightly, but the weight of his words crushed the room. I came here to speak peace, but I am returning home to protect graves. If that makes me dangerous, so be it. And then once more Ray sat in the silence that followed. Something sacred was born. Thousands marched. In Ouagadougou, they carried signs with Traoré's words. Lions are silent when grieving. Protect the graves. But back home, trouble brewed. The multinational mining company denied everything. Said no graves were touched. Claimed Tro was stoking emotion. But the liege elders knew. And one of them, an old woman named Yaba, had kept something buried for years. She appeared on a small Burkinabe radio show, her voice trembling. I was there the night his mother passed. She died praying for her son to never bow to gold. Yaba said something else. Before we buried her, she asked that her grave remain unmarked. If they can't see it, they can't take it, she said. The mining company couldn't find it. They had dug, bulldozed, blasted, but they had missed it. Buried under a fig tree with no stone. Her grave still rested untouched. When Traoré heard this from a call with Yaba, he wept openly. She protected herself. Even in death, he whispered. That night across Africa, candles were lit under fig trees, and one sentence he turned again. They can take the land, but not her spirit. Midnight in Geneva. Inside a private lounge on the 12th floor of the Summit Hotel, 5 men met. They wore suits. They didn't smile. He's dangerous, one said. This is getting out of control. A Saudi investor spoke next. He's waking people up. We can't have another Sankara. A plan was made. Quiet, clean, no mess. Outside the streets were alive, with candlelight vigils. Children held signs. He remembers his mother. We remember him. Inside his room, Tro sat with Musa, his aide and childhood friend. They'll come for you, Musa said. Tro nodded. Calm. Let them. But I will not stop speaking. For her, he didn't say her name. He didn't need to. Musa knew his mother, the woman who planted seeds in the dirt and told him never to bow, even to a gift wrapped in gold. Elsewhere, AOC stared at her phone, scrolling through clips of protests from Cape Town to Toronto. For the first time since she spoke those harsh words, she wondered, was I wrong? And in Thelaway, a shadow moved toward Trace's door slowly. The next morning, a speech was scheduled. A youth panel. No unexpected much. But then a 12-year-old Congolese girl named Amamira stepped to the microphone. She had no shoes, just a pink dress and eyes filled with stories. I come from a village with no lights, she said. We drink the same? Water Argots do. Men came with trucks, and now the river is dark. Camera zoomed in. Some tried to cut the feed, but it was too late. Her voice had already gone viral. I used to be afraid, but then I saw the man on the screen. He said, it gave them a chance to live with options. The room froze. AOC's lips parted slightly. Tro's eyes welled up. Headaches like my grandfather. He remembers things the world wants to forget. A pause. So I say to the people in suits, don't. Call him dangerous. Call him Waviz. A son who didn't forget where he came from. The hall broke into applause. Some cried. Even AOC looked down, her hands trembling. That evening, Daughter of Africa trended alongside Without Chains. And the world changed again. This time because of a barefoot girl. Later that evening, a strange sound shook the floor of the hotel. Screams, sirens, panic. Security rushed in. Guests evacuated. Someone had planted an explosive near the conference hall, near Traoré's chair, but it didn't go off. The timer was set wrong, sighed a Swiss investigator. Tro sat in a secure room with unpeacekeepers. Musa paced the floor, fists clenched. They're trying to silence you, he growled. First your land, then your words, now your life. But Traoré stayed calm, almost peaceful. If I die today, he said. Softly, may me words outlive my body. News of the attempted attack spread fast. Protesters erupted with fury, not in violence, but in numbers. Millions marched. Millions lit candles. In South Africa, women sang old liberation songs. In Haiti, boys wore shirts that read, "Protect the grave, save the voice." And for the first time, AOC stood before a camera and said, I want to speak with Captain Traoré, not as a politician, as a human being. She was beginning to understand this wasn't about policy. It was about dignity. And she had underestimated it. All, for the first time since the summit began, Traoré and AOC sat face to face. No cameras, no microphones. The room was quiet. Just 12 people, 2 truths, and 1 long silence. AOC broke it. Why didn't you get angry? She asked softly. Why didn't you fight me back like the others? Traoré looked down. His hands were rough. Soldiers' hands, farmers' hands, because we've had enough of shouting. Hesed, my mother told me. If your voice must be louder, let it be through your actions. She leaned in. There was something in his eyes. Not ego, not bitterness, just pain. Quiet pain. You thought I sold out Africa, he said, but I carry her in my blood. I buried children who died for freedom. Don't speak to me of betrayal when I still hear them cry in my dreams. AOC's voice cracked. I didn't know. I just judged. And let's fix it together, he said. That sentence became the second slogan of the movement. Let's fix it together. By morning, it had already been painted on school walls across Nairobi. The world was rallying behind Tro, but not. Everyone wanted him to rise. At dawn, a classified report leaked. They claimed Traoré had accepted weapons from a French contractor linked to past atrocities. Social media exploded. News anchors raised their eyebrows. His nemesis whispered, maybe AOC was right after all. But inside the summit, Traoré sat silently, the document trembling in his hand. It was signed by Musa, his closest friend. Betrayal. The man who had once stood beside him in the trenches had given false intel, pressured by money and threats. Why? Traoré whispered. Musa cried on his knees. They said they'd kill my family. A long silence. Then Traoré placed a hand on his shoulder. I understand. I forgive you. Forgiveness in a world addicted to revenge. That moment captured by a single security. Camera went viral across Africa. A Kenyan grandmother said, that's the kind of leader we prayed for. And for the first time, AOC went live on Instagram and said, If this man is who says he is, then maybe we've all been blind. And the world watched, holding its breath. Backstage at the summit, a man approached with a faded envelope. He had gray hair and a limp. "He saved my life," the man whispered, handing it to AOC. "Please read it." She opened the letter that night. It was written in shaky French on old military paper dated 2013. A rebel soldier wrote of a time in northern Burkina Faso when war had reached their village, they were surrounded. Shells flew overhead. Everyone ran except Trey. "He came back for me," the soldier wrote. "He carried me on his back for 9 kilometers through gunfire. Through." AOC's hands shook. The ink was smeared with what looked like old blood. "He told me, even if they leave you." I winked. At the bottom of the letter were 6 words. "He is who he says he is." EO costed the letter online. No caption. The post broke the internet. Tears flooded the comments. Hashtags returned. "He did not leave us." "Fix it together." And somewhere in Hagadugu, a mother whispered to her daughter, "Now you see we named you after him." As the summit's final panel opened, the tension in the room was thick. Just then, Asmal's voice echoed from the back. "Can I say something?" Everyone turned. A little boy, no older than 8, stood trembling behind the security rail, holding a hand-painted sign. Security tried to usher him out, but Traoré raised his hand. "Let him speak." The boy's name was Kwabana, a refugee from northern Ghana. His village had been torn apart by war. His father gone, his mother missing. He had walked across 12 borders to reach this summit. He held up the sign. It read, "He gave measures." Gasps, silence. The camera zoomed in. Kwabena whispered, "Every yo nepist me." Only he stopped. He tied them himself. Said, "One day you'll walk into your future with pride." Tears ran down AOC's face. She looked at Traoré, her voice breaking. "I didn't see the man behind the medals." That clip aired in 121 countries in 12 hours. First time in summit history. The audience gave a child a standing ovation. The final day of the summit began with sirens, not speeches. Hundreds of protesters had gathered outside peacefully. New York, Dar, Paris, Cape Town, Sydney, all chanting the same 5 words. "He gave me shoes, too." People shared personal stories. Anderson Molly, a teacher in Haiti, a woman in Ferguson. All once helped by the man they never knew they'd meet again. The movement had a name now. Walk with Pride. The UN released a statement tackling Captain Ibrahim Traoré's leadership as a model of modern moral courage. Even the U.S. Congress issued a bipartisan letter of respect. AOC signed it at first, but it was an old woman in Burkina Faso sitting outside a market stall who said it best to a bad reporter. "They tried to silence our son. Instead, they gave him the microphone. By midnight, Walk with Pride had passed 1.2 billion mentions on social media. And Ibrahim, he stood outside unnoticed, watching children write their dreams in chalk on the pavement. Summit was over. The lights dimmed, but Traoré walked back onto the stage last time. No prepared speech, no podium, just a quiet man in front of the world. He looked directly into the camera and said, "I forgive those who doubted me. I love those who stood beam, but above all, I believe in Thostal fighting to be heard." He paused, then added, "If I ever betrayed Africa, it was by not speaking sooner. I'm speaking now." The room stood still. Then, for the first time in summit history, delegates from every continent stood and applauded. AOC walked up to him, tears in her eyes. She didn't speak. She hugged him. That single frame, a congresswoman to captain once enemies, became Time Magazine's photo of the year. If history moved your heart, if it made you cry, If it reminded you that dignity still exists in this world, then don't just scroll. Comment. I walk with pride. Click that like button to show the world we still believe in real leaders. And subscribe because we're telling more stories that the world tries to silence. Let this video be a movement. Let it be your voix too. Because as Captain True said, we rise not by standing taller, but by lifting each other higher.